Ladies and gentlemen, welcoming our keynote speakers for the day. I would like to go ahead and welcome Pam and Mr. Christopher Tompkins. A very warm welcome to both of you. Now, talking about Pam, Pam is currently a Consultant Chief Academic Officer for NEOM Education Research and Innovation Saudi Arabia. She sits on a variety of International Ministry of Education, select community, and groundbreaking international education research groups. Let's go ahead and welcome Pam on board. And along with Pam, we have Mr. Christopher Tompkins as well. Well, a 32-year veteran of independent and international education, Mr. Christopher is currently the Executive Director of EC12 Education within the Education Research and Innovation sector of NEOM projects in Saudi Arabia. A very warm welcome to both of you. Can we have a huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen?
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's wonderful to be here. Thank you so much for that kind introduction. I am thrilled to be joining this group once again and to be able to introduce a bit more about NEOM education and bringing my colleague Pam with me to ensure that we speak about all of our progress to date and some of our aspirations for the future in terms of creating partnerships and business opportunities for OPCOs and perhaps PropCos out there. So Pam, if you'd like to dive right in, Pam's going to be running our slideshow today. I'm just going to give us a little bit of quick background in terms of NEOM. As most of you probably know, NEOM is an enormous project that comes out of the vision for 2030 and creating an area that's not just a city, but really in some ways a country. The size of NEOM physically is of Belgium. And so when we talk about schools, we are talking about this vast area and a significant number of people yielding a high number of children that we'll be working with. So we have moved from the planning stage and strategy to implementation, which is amazing for us. But where we start is the idea of what is the future of education. And one of the things we've said in NEOM is we're not going to just buy a curriculum off a shelf and hand it to our teachers. We want our teachers to be treated as the professionals that they are, as the experts, as mentors, as leaders, and so forth. And in order to do that, we have to start from the standpoint of saying, what is the future? We know it's volatile, uncertain, it's complex, and it's ambiguous. And with that in mind, the idea that all we're doing is giving children information is the wrong way to look at education. But using information to guide children in the growth of skills that are applicable beyond today into the future for jobs we don't know about, that needs to be our focus. So we don't want to send children out in the world without any knowledge, but we want to use knowledge to gain the skills necessary for success. And so, Pam, if you'd like to jump to the next page, you can.
I will indeed.
Right
Absolutely.
ahead.
And one of our key drivers is something that sits behind this slide, which is, are young people prepared for work? It depends what that work is. And at NEOM, we see every single day that the people who are working with us, the people who work in the current camp, have skills that are way beyond any that I think any of us were actually trained for, despite the titles of our roles. And if I look at some of the jobs that are being advertised at the moment, right here, right now, today, anyone ever thought of being a microgravity body development specialist or an intergalactic terrestrial astronomer? Absolutely not. Those jobs didn't exist 5 years ago, 4 years ago. So what we have to be very agile about in NEOM is to make sure that we are looking to the future, which may be a gig future for many students, and also a career where 14, 15 different careers may be part of it. So as Chris says, we're being very careful in terms of the education we are offering, because it cannot be the tried and tested, although it needs to have some familiarity. And with that in mind, we're obviously starting with the very, very youngest children right the way through. And this is, if you like, it's our mantra. It's not just simply the toys, it's the resources. We don't want to give any of our students or any of the people that work with us the things that are ready to go, the point and press, the tried and tested. We want people who come in with innovative, imaginative minds, who are wanting to know not what, but why, how, when, who. Those are the questions that drive everything we do in NEOM. Chris.
Sure, Pam, if you'd like to jump to the next page. So just to remind those who may not have been with us in the past or have looked at NEOM, the NEOM ERI, or Education, Research, and Innovation sector, is made up of 4 primary pillars, and our focus is on early childhood through grade 12 education. And we are going to create an international program that's integrating experiential learning, technology, global understanding, leadership, and sustainability that's aligned with the IB. But it's much bigger than that. I mean, this is that broad vision, but how we implement it is really what's going to set us apart. And utilizing partnerships that understand our vision and our mission will be essential to our long-term success. I like to say that there are basically 2 kinds of schools out there: schools that want to impose their view of what you should be, or schools that want to release you to be what you want and can be. I think the previous slide that Pam talked about in terms of imagination versus batteries tells us those same 2 things. We want to release all of the creative energy that children have innately. And we want to ensure that that is then utilized to build a better future for them and for the rest of the world. So Pam, if you'd like to jump to the next more dense page, we can work on that a little bit together. Just to give you a quick sense of where we're going, I'll mention our mission. This concept of a living laboratory, I know some people have felt it's a bit scary, the idea that we're going to be using children as guinea pigs, and that's not the case. What we want to do is utilize research while we also conduct research. That doesn't mean that we're going to be doing things to children in a classroom or utilizing unknowns or not giving people the chance to feel comfortable and confident in their environment. We'll always work with parents to ensure that they're fully engaged in their children's education. But we also want to ensure the fact that we're not doing things the way they've always been done simply because they're familiar. So this living laboratory that creates an engaging and inspiring ecosystem is absolutely essential. And we do want to build community. Sometimes people focus too much on technology. We want to use technology to build a better educational community for us and for the children and for the future. So when we take a look at things in NEOM, we will be looking at real world problems, and we will be doing that through various programs that we'll point out in a short time. But it just gives you a quick sense of how we're approaching things here. We're not set in our ways. Pam, maybe you want to add to that.
Sure. And we've also taken a very different approach to the way that we've recruited the educators. We've said to each and every one of them, we've been very fortunate to actually handpick the first group of people who've come with us. And we've presented this to them and said, we don't want anyone who's coming with a tried and tested way of working. We want the core principles, of course we do. However, we want you to come to us and say, this is how I've always wanted education to be. This is how I've always wanted to work as an educator, as a facilitator of learning more than a teacher. And so all of them have come with a very open mind, with a set piece that innovation is the way forward, that the students who sit with us, the parents, the families that work with us, this is going to be like nothing ever came before. And of course, what we're doing at the moment is working with the very first of what will be 117 possibly plus schools, which is where the opportunity for partnerships really come in. So we have people who are going to drive this forward, who will of course be the founding members of schools going forward. We're growing leaders, we're growing teachers, we're growing learning assistants, we're growing a community of education that looks beyond anything that has ever existed before. And it's still in development. It will always be under development because we never want to have it finished. That would actually put an end to what we've said, which is we're looking at real world problems, and real world problems never go away. We're looking at a future of learning, a living laboratory, and it really is working incredibly well.
I think Pam, you put it really well. At the top of this page, it says the school of the future. And it is always a complicated conversation because everyone wants to know when we will build the school of the future. And as you said, we really never will, because it should always be something that's out in front of us that we're working to achieve or attain. The idea that we've arrived would negate the overall concept of what our ecosystem is all about. There's always something new There's a new problem, there's a new issue, there's new research out there, and we should always be learning. If we're true educators, then we should learn every single day, just like we ask our children to. So it's exciting as we take a look at what's out there in front of us, but also it's exciting when we start talking about what is happening right here on the ground now, the implementation side. And we could jump to page 7 if you'd like, Pam.
Will do.
And when we talk about the school of the future, one of the things that we have focused on as we're developing schools in NEOM is the idea that we will have signature programs or centers of excellence that both are physical in nature, but programmatic in nature as well. As you saw earlier, we mentioned that there will be probably 2 boarding schools within NEOM and then a significant number of day schools. The boarding schools may act as the physical home to a research center based upon EC through 12 education, but the program will then go out into all of our schools. And hopefully, when we're successful, we will be going out into the world and operating schools ourselves down the road. But if we take a look at where we are right now, we've done some amazing work putting some programs together already and implementing starting in 2020 with innovation challenges to basically put some of our programs to the test. Pam, you were very involved in our Ocean X program, which comes under the Oceanographic Institute. Would you like to touch on that for a moment?
Yes, I mean, this probably was at the forefront of all that we stand for. We're very fortunate to be involved in a project called Ocean X, which now has become, as Chris says, completely embedded into what will be our Oceanographic Institute. For the first time ever, using incredibly high-tech equipment, a whole group of scientists, our own researchers from NEOM, went out into the Red Sea, and this has been many, many years since anyone has done this. They brought back for us live video footage, they explored corals, they looked at the megafauna, they looked at new and emerging, I guess not emerging creatures, but they're already there, discovery at its finest. And we were so fortunate that we were able to take a group of pilot students across Saudi Arabia and said to them, would you like to be part of this? They joined us and the most phenomenal things happened. We used virtual reality. Students were able to see what the scientists were seeing. And actually we had 2 of our students who actually discovered a creature that the scientists who were looking at the video footage hadn't seen. So basically we were right at the forefront of what is world development, but more than that, looking at sustainability, looking at ecosystems, and these students were driven, completely driven, in the same way that many young people are across the world, to say, why didn't we know about this before? Why has no one ever taught this to us? And the answer was very simple, because this is teaching as we go. This is learning of the future, of the moment. And as Chris said earlier, we're looking to the future all the time, because it won't just happen. It's here, it's now. And each time we discover something new, which is what we found with Ocean X, each time we discover something new, there is more learning to be done. And that in many ways epitomizes what we're trying to do. Incidentally, the Oceanographic Institute will offer the Ocean X program to students across Saudi Arabia and much further. This is a very exciting project.
Yeah, I think when I think about the Oceanographic Institute, in some ways it's the premier or the very first element of the NEOM education program that we've implemented. And it includes partnerships with Virtuoso and Labster. Virtuoso to help put together our virtual reality learning platform, Labster to take advantage of their technology in terms of doing labs for students face-to-face. Now, this program put together elements of online education and learning at the height of the pandemic, and we were connecting students from around Saudi Arabia when no one was meeting face-to-face. And so this is an amazing opportunity where you see multiple levels and elements of our program coming together. And we could apply it across much of what we're doing right here, because we had the online learning, the Center for Teaching and Learning, which is designed to bring people together at the professional level. That is already taking place now through deep training with our teachers in terms of an AI curriculum that we've introduced, one of the first in the region to offer it from grade 1 all the way through grade 8. Someone asked me recently, if you don't have calculus, how can you have AI? Well, AI is about thinking as much as mathematics. but we've created partnerships with KAUST for teacher development and Carnegie Mellon University, where we're training Saudi teachers in robotics and AI. We're putting together an amazing program in Arabic and Islamic studies that will attract students to study those areas from around the world. Working with our own Center for Sustainability in our Environment Department, we are developing a program there. So as I look across everything that we're doing so far, it comes back to that Oceanographic Institute, but everything we're doing is taking advantage of the resources that we have within NEOM. Some of the greatest minds in the world are already working here alongside us, but we also have these resources locally from the Red Sea to the mountains of Saudi Arabia that give our students access, unparalleled access in key areas. So it's exciting to take a look at what's happening on the ground. We can move on to the next page, Pam. I know I want to watch our time and give time for people to ask questions. I won't stop here for long. The characteristics of the students of the future, notice we're focusing on a level of skills, but knowledge is still an element of that. We don't want a student to come out as a cookie cutter image of something that we have produced, but we want a student to come out with these skills and to be able to do anything they want. And one of the great things I saw in that Oceanographic Institute that Pam was so key in bringing about for us was watching girls engage in science and girls engaging online in leadership conversations to solve problems around water and so forth. And that is a skill that comes only when we open up to all the possibilities that are there. We do not put anyone into a box. We do not come with any preconceived notions. We take students where they are and we give them every opportunity to succeed and to pursue areas of their interest. And I know, Pam, you were going to take the next slide just to touch base on one of the more familiar elements of our program.
Yes, I mean, one of the keys to this, and actually it's about bringing people on board. We can drive forward all we like, but actually if you don't have parents and families with you, it's hard. So what we decided to do was, for this first school, and probably for our subsequent schools for a while, we've taken on the use of the IBE curriculum deliberately, because it's inquiry based, because it embraces all of the elements that we want to develop in NEOM. And it's also really important that parents who are coming to us, who are actually holding hands with us and being brave and also future gazing, have something that they can hold on to. And so this fitted us perfectly. So right from the earliest years, we're looking at the IB, although with our very, very youngest children, we have babies, we have all the way through, which is wonderful, because that's the way that Chris and I view education anyway. Even our little ones have an inquiry-based framework for learning, a system for learning, which segues beautifully into the IB once they reach the time when they're old enough for that. So at the moment, we have the early years program, the enhanced PYP itself, and middle years, and we are working towards the actual IB diploma and probably the IB careers related program at the same time. With that in mind, we are also looking at creating our own diploma, a NEOM specific diploma, building on from the offer of the IB, so that we pick up a huge amount of what's learned in the IB, but we also can set it in the context of NEOM and not move away from our future gazing, our future oriented educational approach. And as you can see here, and I won't dwell on it too much, I know everyone can read, we're actually working very closely with all of the industry sectors in NEOM and beyond, as Chris has just explained in terms of the Ocean X project. We want it to be something that isn't just simply NEOM specific, it's NEOM created and can be accessed by anyone across the world. And what we hope is that it would be a living program, so that as other countries, other jurisdictions use it, they can add into it too. So it becomes a dynamic program, keeps its core DNA from NEOM, but actually can spread and be much more contextually appropriate. And again, we'll utilize all the learning that we're doing at the moment in terms of face-to-face learning, which is it's absolutely critical, but also the use of AI and virtual reality, as Chris has explained. But we have a really strong belief that it shouldn't be, that's the room for AI, that's the room for VR. They are integrated and part of the neural system, if you like, of our schools and what the NEOM diploma will be. And as you can see there, a quest log for every learner. They'll portfolio their own learning journey, which actually gives, for want of a better word, the control to the students and allows them to drive their own learning, so that if they've agreed or they've decided on a particular career, it may be that through this quest log, they actually discover that they want to do something different, or in fact, they're inventing their own career. And I think that's quite exciting. Chris, do you want to add anything to that?
Well, I think we can jump to the next page. And what I'll add to this is saying that we often get the question, well, how will your students be measured? How will universities understand whether or not your students compare, or how do you know you're succeeding? And one of the things that we've done is we've chosen IB for a reason. It's known, and we can utilize it along with our philosophy, and we can also utilize it at the DP level to do some broad measurements without it being all high stakes testing. The other way to do this is to use a recognized accreditation system. And I won't spend a lot of time, but we have made the choice to work with NIASC and their specific ACE pathway, because it is so well aligned with our goals, and it works closely with the IB. But you can see here specifically things like engagement and autonomy, research and reflection on learning, inclusiveness of learning, space and time, community. These are elements that are not based in just treating a child as an empty vessel, but respecting the child as a human being that has unique skills, attributes, and talents, and bringing those out. Knowing that we have only a few minutes left, I'd love to jump right to slide 13 and do a quick introduction of the school, and then leave a few minutes for us for questions. Just to give you a sense of timing, only 5 months before we open the school on September the 5th of this year, the spot that we're looking at right now was sand. And so when we put our minds to it and we sit down and work as a team, we can achieve amazing things. And we built a school that is suitable for up to about 250 students, early childhood through about grade 10, taking us up through the middle years program. And it includes many elements that we feel are essential to the future of education. And we've talked a bit about the elements of education, Pam. I don't know if you want to mention a few of the key initiatives, and then we can show a few interior photos of how we've applied our education program.
Sure. I mean, there's a whole list, and you can only see a few of them. We've mentioned some of them already, but we're holding very much to the belief that you don't restrict a child to your own learning because they're born in another time. So we've got a huge amount of partnerships, as we've already mentioned, the Ocean X, the 8-module online, the VR program. Our key focus through the whole of this is learning through inquiry and research. So not spoon-fed, learning that actually activates the mind and makes students want to learn more. Global economics obviously is a critical piece of what we're doing. We've got the first program in Saudi Arabia to work on this. And again, it's experiential learning, it's competitions, it's summits, it cracks NEOM wide open to bring in other countries and other schools, other students. And Chris has already mentioned Labster. So I'll jump on to the next one, Chris. We've got some superb partnerships. As you'll see now, we've got a partnership with an organisation called This Time of Now, Teton. They're probably one of the most groundbreaking, forward-thinking organisations in the world, who look not simply at the technological side of things, they also look at the human side. So it is blending the human and tech together. We've got the partnerships with KAUS that Chris has mentioned already, the very first model G20 program in Saudi Arabia, and a small group who will now understand what the role of that G20 is. I've heard many people over the past few months say, so what's G20? What's COP20? What is it? Now we've got students who actually will understand it. And then the next generation coding, robotics program that we have, and that will of course take us into whole new realms. So Chris, I don't know if you want to add anything to do that, because I'm conscious of time too.
No, I think we should move quickly into the photo. So just very, very quick points I'll make. So our classrooms are designed in a way that the teacher is no longer sitting at a huge desk at the front of the room. You can see we've created a desk off to the side. This has created a question with some parents saying, but why isn't the teacher at the center? The teacher is at the center of learning, not the center of the room. And there is a difference. And so the key element of the teacher as mentor and guide and coach doesn't change. But having the children engage on a different level with and amongst each other is the goal. And the next page shows us our collaboration space, where we've turned things inside out, basically. We don't restrict areas to be silent, although we want to provide quiet areas for reflection, but we want there to be a bit of a hum around learning that takes place in the building. The logistics nightmare of the world has kept us from getting all of our books. So please understand those shelves are actually already filled since we took this picture. But then, of course, Pam, your background in terms of creative play on slides 18 and 19, just leaving briefly because I know we're at the end of our time and would love to leave some questions.
I mean, you'll see there, and people will look at this slide and say, well, where's the equipment? Well, that's it. Because the children bring, we said it very much earlier in the presentation, they bring their learning to this, they play with this. And Chris and I had a very fine moment a couple of weeks ago when we were having a workshop with parents. One of the parents said, I'm really worried. It was a slightly older student. My child comes home and I say, what did you do today? And they say, play. And I said, well, I'm absolutely delighted. Chris and I were beaming because that's the whole point of this. It's the playing with the exploration of the world. So we want students to create their own ideas, use things imaginatively. So we have suggested the environment. It is for the students to bring this with the high level facilitation, interaction of teachers who will push, who will ask the questions. So our whole curriculum is based on inquiring about the world, and anyone who ever argues the toss with Chris or I on that one, well, I'd like to suggest that some very important people in the world, people like Steve Jobs, they played with an awful lot of equipment to change the world in the way that it's changed now. Who knows? The children who will play in this environment, who will learn in these schools, they'll be the people who change the future with our support to project them out there.
So Pam, knowing that we have a hard stop here, why don't we leave this page, because I think it's a bright, airy page, and we have a question that's quite a bit long. Throughout history, after a global crisis, a new era of thinking begins. Would you like to touch on that, the accessibility of digitalization education? Should we be concerned that as the world becomes more diversified, decentralized, and dependent on technology, this would lead to a higher risk of unmanageable failures in either physical or social systems? How do we deal with this fear? These are big questions. This is great. We should put this in one of our innovation challenges, but
I think
Pam, do you want to touch on it? I'm happy.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating because any of you on the call may or may not know about this, but there is a very high-end philosophy, particularly for early childhood, but it goes all the way through, which is credited to the Reggio Emilia schools in Italy. Loris Malaguzzi founded those schools in response to the end of the Second World War, to bring children back to truth and beauty and creativity and imagination. I think you're right, and thank you for such a superb question. I think you're right that we need to be careful. However, you never lose the human face of this. I mentioned the organization that we work with. The key to this, we can be online forever, we can use technology forever, but it has to be an integrated use of digital technology, of systems, of online, but also the most important thing, which is the human interaction. And all of us, whether we like it or not, have been impacted by living our lives online as we're doing now. I would much rather, I know Chris would, be in the room with you and having that interaction face to face. So I think it's to be mindful of what you're saying, but it's something that Chris and I bring all of our teams back to. Okay, that's all great, fantastic, future-facing, digital. How is that impacting on us as a community? How is that impacting on us as a wider society? And what are the values that we hold on to in this brand new groundbreaking system that we're going to take into the rest of the world? Now, I'm not sure whether that answers your question, but we are responding, but also being mindful at the same time.
I'll move into the second question and kind of use this your comments as a jumping off point. I think one of the things that we saw here in NEOM at the beginning of the year was that children had forgotten how to go to school, that the impact of COVID had changed their ability to have social interactions with adults other than their family and other children. And we all had to learn how to return to school. And I think that is, in essence, we all had to learn how to return to society. Your comment, this next question here about the remote situation and hybrid learning, I should tell you that we're committed to building community with face-to-face learning. So when we talk about hybrid learning, it is providing resources to our students that bring the world to our classrooms, and to ensure that our students have access regardless of where they are. And then it's our teachers and their expertise and our willingness to remain small and to have low ratios to ensure that every student has a fair and consistent experience. I like the fact that this question talks about a similar experience. I think that's exactly what we're looking at NEOM. We're not looking for the same. We're looking for a fair and consistent or similar, a common experience, not the same experience. And so we might have a student who we can provide access to learning German through hybrid learning. We will then work with that program to ensure that it meets our standards. Likewise, we may provide a program to schools in remote Saudi Arabia away from the Red Sea on oceanography using our virtual reality platform. So I think it's something that's still in the works, but I think we can do it. And that's the last question. I'm sorry, we had a hard stop. I hope we gave some good information. We're open for business. We look forward to working with people. So Pam, thank you.
No, thank you, Chris. I look forward to meeting some of you who are online in the near future in NEOM. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for sharing such valuable inputs. It was a pleasure having you with us today.